Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The room buzzed with voices, maps spread across the table, screens flickering with satellite feeds. Men leaned forward, their voices sharp, urgent, layered with the weight of lives and orders. She sat near the edge, her back straight, her hands folded so tightly her knuckles had turned pale. They didn't look at her, not once. The commander's hand tapped the map with a pen. We breach here, 2 teams. The valley's a choke point, we'll have cover from the ridges. The men nodded, a joke slipped in. A half smile gone in a second. No one asked her opinion, no one asked her anything. She stared at the lines, the red circles, the markers that meant lives, losses, widows, orphans. She knew something they didn't, something that wasn't in the brief, but she said nothing. Not yet. Her throat tightened. That old familiar heat rose behind her eyes, the sting of being dismissed, the quiet ache of being present but unseen. She'd carried that weight for years, like an extra pack strapped to her shoulders, always the one overlooked, always the one remembered last, if at all. And yet tonight would hinge on her. The memory tugged at her as the room faded. A hallway years ago, boots on linoleum, the echo of laughter behind her. She'd been the last one picked in training exercises, the quiet cadet, not because she lacked skill, but because she lacked presence. She never fought for the spotlight. She never raised her voice above the others. Her father once told her, "There's strength in silence, but silence is easy to mistake for weakness." She hadn't known then how much those words would follow her. The commander dismissed them with a wave. Wheels up at 200, dismissed. Chairs scraped back. Men gathered papers, exchanged nods, murmured quick promises of what they'd do after if they got back. She stood slowly, as if waiting for someone to notice. No one did. She pulled her jacket tighter, stepped into the corridor. Cold concrete walls, humming lights overhead. She paused, listening to the echoes fade. There was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The airstrip was alive in the darkness. Engines throbbed, the smell of fuel hung heavy. Shadows moved, gear strapped, rifles checked, helmets clipped. Every man carried his ritual, his way of quieting the fear. A hand over a wedding ring. A photograph folded into a vest. A half-smoked cigarette before the ramp closed. She walked among them like a ghost, her boots finding rhythm with theirs, though none of them matched her gaze. Her weapon felt heavy across her chest, not from weight but from memory. The last mission had cost her more than she'd let on. The image flashed again, dust, shouting, the sharp crack of rounds. And then his hand slipping from hers. She hadn't spoken of it. She buried it deep, under layers of silence. The ramp lowered. The night wind bit hard. They climbed aboard. Inside, the drone of engines swallowed thought. Red lights glowed faintly. She sat pressed against the side, helmet on her knees. Across from her, one of the younger men, barely old enough to shave, fumbled with his straps. His hands trembled. She leaned forward, reached without speaking, clicked the buckle into place. His eyes flicked up, surprised. "Thanks," he muttered. She nodded once, didn't smile, didn't need to. The aircraft lurched forward, climbing into the dark. She closed her eyes, counted her breath. In, out, her pulse steadying but only just. Every flight before a mission felt the same, like sitting on the edge of a confession, like wanting to tell someone the truth before it was too late. But she stayed silent. They landed, rough tires skidding across dirt. The night was black, the kind that swallows sound. No moon, only stars, brittle and cold above the ridges. Boots hit earth. They fanned out, rifles raised, each step deliberate. The valley loomed like a throat, dark and waiting. She felt it before she saw it, a shift in the air, a wrongness the others didn't sense. Her eyes scanned the ridges, the shadows, a silence too perfect. "Movement," one of them whispered. "Negative," came the reply. But she knew. She could almost hear the echo of her father's voice again. "Listen for what isn't there. The absence tells more than the noise." She slowed, her breath visible in faint clouds. The cold seeped into her gloves. Something flickered at the corner of her sight, just a shape, a glint, gone before she could confirm. "Wait," she whispered. The men ahead didn't stop. They pressed on, eyes forward, trusting the briefing, trusting the map. She raised her voice, louder this time. "Wait." They turned, startled. She rarely spoke. Her words carried weight now, like stones dropped into water. "What is it?" the commander asked, irritation lacing the edge. She swallowed, pointed toward the ridge. "There." They looked, saw nothing. One of them scoffed. Another shifted uncomfortably. She felt the sting of doubt, the familiar burn of being unheard. For a moment she almost let it go, almost let them walk into it. But then she remembered his hand slipping from hers, the dust, the silence after. "No," she said firmly, "there's something there." And then the ridge erupted. Muzzle flashes cracked in the darkness. Tracers cut across the night sky, red lines like burning veins. The first volley sent men diving for cover, curses filling the comms. She hit the dirt, her cheek against the earth, the taste of dust in her mouth. Heart hammering, ears ringing. They walked into an ambush. The commander barked orders, voice jagged. "Return fire, suppress that ridge." Rounds ripped through the night, dirt sprayed, the valley roared alive. She crawled forward, rifle pressed tight. Her eyes tracked movement, shadows darting, the rhythm of enemy fire. She found a gap, squeezed the trigger. The recoil jolted her shoulder, the target collapsing. Beside her, the young soldier she'd helped with the straps was frozen, his rifle shaking in his grip. His breath came fast, panicked. She grabbed his arm. "Breathe, aim low, fire." He blinked at her, swallowed, did as told. The rifle cracked, he hit something. His shoulders eased just a fraction. The fight raged. Minutes blurred into seconds, into forever. But through the chaos she saw it, the pattern. The ridge fire was too heavy, too precise. It wasn't just random resistance. It was bait. Her gut twisted. "They want us pinned," she muttered. The commander didn't hear. Didn't want to. He was too busy screaming coordinates, calling for support that wasn't coming. She closed her eyes for half a beat. Not again, she thought, not like before. She shifted, crawled low along the valley's edge. Every step scraped, tore at her gloves. But she kept moving, circling wide, angling toward the source. Her breath thundered in her ears. Her mind screamed at her to stop, to go back, to stay in line. But something deeper pushed her forward. She crested a small rise, belly flat, rifle steady. From here the truth revealed itself. Not dozens, not scattered fighters, but one core nest dug deep into the ridge, heavy guns, too much firepower for their small unit. If they kept pushing as planned, no one would make it out. Her lips parted, the weight of choice pressed on her chest. She could go back, tell them, risk being ignored again, or she could act. She steadied her breath, in, out, in, out. Through the scope the world narrowed, one target, then another, then another. Her finger tightened. The first shot cracked clean. A gunner dropped, she shifted, another, and another. The ridge faltered, momentarily stunned. Fire slowed just enough. "Who the hell is covering us?" one of the men shouted through comms. No one answered. She didn't need them to know, not yet. By the time the ridge fell silent, the valley stank of gunpowder and sweat. Men panted, their faces pale in the starlight. The silence after was heavy, pressing into every ear. The commander scanned the ridge, confusion plain. He turned, met her eyes for the first time that night. Her rifle smoked faintly. Her chest rose and fell steady. But she said nothing. She simply lowered the scope, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the silence wasn't weakness. It was power. Why didn't anyone ask who saved them? The valley smelled of spent rounds and sweat, of fear still clinging to the dirt. The wind shifted, tugging at smoke drifting from the ridge. Men leaned against boulders, catching their breath, wiping grime from their eyes. But no one asked. They didn't look at her rifle, still warm. They didn't notice the steadiness in her hands, the rhythm in her breathing. They only muttered curses about bad intel, about command failing them, about how close they'd come to dying. She sat on the edge of the group, silent, her face calm, though her heart still hammered beneath the armor. It was always the same. When things went wrong, no one listened. When things went right, no one asked why. The commander barked orders again. 5 minutes, then we move. We've lost surprise. They'll know we're here. His voice was sharp, covering fear. She could see it in his hands, just the faintest tremor when he pointed at the map. She wondered if the others noticed. Probably not. She pressed her palms against the dirt, grounding herself. The cold seeped through her gloves, anchoring her in the present. The young soldier, the one she'd steadied on the aircraft, the one whose rifle had shaken, looked at her now. Just briefly. His lips parted like he wanted to ask, like he'd seen enough to know. But then he turned away, following the others. And she let him. They moved out, boots crunching softly, shoulders hunched under packs. The valley narrowed, then widened again, ridges looming like watchful eyes. Each shadow held the threat of more gunfire. Every few steps she glanced up, scanning ridgelines, sensing the emptiness where danger could be hiding. Her eyes caught details the others missed, the unnatural stillness of rocks, the faint pattern of disturbed soil. But she didn't speak, not yet. Her silence wasn't just habit, it was memory. Years ago in training, she'd raised her voice once, pointed out a flaw in the drill plan, a blind spot in their perimeter. The instructor had dismissed her. The drill had gone wrong. Men had been captured in simulation. The lesson should have been obvious. Instead, the debrief praised the boldness of those who fought their way out. Her words were forgotten, her warning erased. That was when she learned. Silence protected her, silence was safe. But tonight, silence would also kill them. Hours dragged on. The unit set up a temporary position in a depression between two ridges. Cold winds swept through, cutting deep. They crouched low, sharing what little heat they could. Radios hissed, spitting bursts of static. No reinforcements, no clear line back. The commander muttered into his mic, frustration building with every unanswered call. Finally, he slammed the device against his knee and cursed. They were alone. She closed her eyes, leaning against the rough stone. The weight of her pack pressed into her spine. Every nerve ached with exhaustion, but her mind wouldn't rest. She thought of him again, the last mission, the dust, the noise, the moment everything went wrong. He'd been more than just a teammate, more than just another soldier, but she'd never said it aloud, not once, not even to him. She saw his face every time she blinked, heard his laugh in the moments between gunfire, the way he'd believed in her, even when no one else had. She pressed her fist against her chest as if she could bury the ache deeper. She couldn't tell them this, couldn't let it slip. If they knew, if they saw, they'd look at her differently, and she couldn't afford that. Not now. Hey. The voice pulled her back. She opened her eyes. The young soldier again. His helmet pushed back, sweat glistening at his hairline. He looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot. "You were right back there," he said quietly. His voice barely rose above the wind. "On the ridge." She studied him. His eyes held no judgment, just uncertainty. He licked his lips. "How'd you know?" She glanced away to the horizon. "I just knew." He hesitated, waiting for more, but she didn't give it. Finally, he nodded, as if accepting the half-answer. He stepped back toward the others, shoulders hunched. She watched him go. A part of her wanted to call him back, to tell him everything, that instincts weren't magic, that they were born from pain, from loss, from nights staring at maps until her eyes bled, from mistakes she'd sworn never to repeat. But silence closed over her again. Night deepened. They took turns on watch, eyes scanning ridges through scopes. Every rustle of stone set nerves on edge. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. When her turn came, she sat still, rifle steady, eyes tracing shadows. Her body ached for rest, but she refused to blink too long. The stars overhead glittered cold and sharp. The same stars she'd stared at as a child, lying in the back of her father's truck in fields far from the city. He used to point them out, tracing constellations with his rough hand. Out there, he'd say, the universe doesn't care about your name, but what you do that matters. She swallowed hard, fighting the lump in her throat. He'd been gone a long time now, but his voice lived in her. A sound snapped her back, gravel shifting, a whisper of movement across the ridge. She tensed, scanning through the scope. Nothing clear, just wrongness. Her finger hovered on the trigger, but she held back. If she fired now, it would wake them all, burn their last scrap of cover. She stayed silent, watched, waited. And then nothing. Just the wind. Her muscles screamed from holding so still. She lowered the rifle slowly, her breath shaky. When her shift ended, she tapped the next soldier awake. He groaned, rubbed his eyes, muttered something bitter. She ignored it. Lying back against the dirt, she stared at the stars again. Sleep wouldn't come, not for her. Morning broke gray and brittle. The unit moved again, stiff and weary, rations chewed in silence. The commander's voice grew sharper, thinner. He was losing grip. They all felt it. By midday, they reached a narrow pass. The rocks rose high on either side, jagged like broken teeth. The commander signaled for them to enter. Her gut twisted instantly. She froze, scanning the formation of rocks, perfect for an ambush, too perfect. Her voice caught in her throat. If she spoke now, would they listen? Or would it be the same as every time before? The silence pressed on her like a weight. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The young soldier glanced back at her, sensing her hesitation. His brows furrowed. He didn't speak either. The team pressed forward. She clenched her fists, nails biting through gloves. Her chest ached with the memory of dust, of his hand slipping from hers. Not again. This time she found her voice. Stop. It wasn't loud, but it cut through. The commander turned, annoyance flashing in his eyes. What now? She stepped forward, heart hammering, pointing to the rocks. It's wrong, the angles, the silence. It's a kill zone. He scoffed. We don't have time for. And then it happened. The crack of a rifle echoed. A round snapped past his head, splintering stone. Chaos erupted. The pass lit up with fire, enemies spilling from hidden alcoves, rifles blazing. The air tore apart with noise. The commander dove for cover, curses filling the comms. Contact, contact. She dropped to one knee, rifle up, returning fire. Each shot was measured, deliberate, cutting down shadows before they could overwhelm the unit. The men scattered, scrambling behind rocks, shouting into mics that still spat only static. The young soldier slid in beside her, eyes wide, chest heaving. You called it. She didn't answer. She just kept firing. By the time the fight ebbed, the ground was littered with shell casings and silence heavier than the night. They survived again, but barely. A man lay bleeding from the shoulder, another limped with a wound through his thigh. Bandages were wrapped, teeth clenched against pain. The commander sat slumped against stone, staring at nothing. His face pale, eyes hollow. The mask had cracked. For the first time, the others looked at her, really looked. Not with admiration, not with praise, but with something closer to recognition. She lowered her rifle, breathing hard. Her hands trembled now that it was over, not from fear of death, but from the cost of speaking. Silence had protected her. Silence had kept her invisible. But twice now, breaking it had saved them. And she wondered, with a pang both bitter and strange, how many times would it take before they remembered her name? Why was it always the quiet ones who carried the heaviest weight? The pass lay behind them, littered with blood and brass. Their boots dragged through dust, the silence broken only by labored breaths and the hiss of radios that no longer reached anyone. Every step was heavier than the last, weighed down not just by gear but by the realization that command had forgotten them. No reinforcements, no extraction. They were on their own. The commander moved at the front, but his shoulders had slumped. His voice, once sharp, now came hollow. "Keep moving, we'll find cover, regroup." No one believed it. She walked near the back, rifle slung tight, her eyes scanning ridges, listening for the absence of sound, the silence of danger. Her chest still thrummed with the echoes of gunfire, but her hands were steady. The young soldier drifted near her, steps uneven with exhaustion. His helmet bobbed, his breathing too fast. He glanced at her now and then, like a man trying to memorize something that mattered. She ignored it or tried to. They found a hollow at dusk, a shallow cave cut into the rock, barely enough to hide them, but it was shelter from the cold wind. Men collapsed inside, tearing at ration packs, bandaging wounds with shaky hands. The wounded groaned softly, teeth clenched against pain. The metallic smell of blood filled the air, thick and inescapable. She sat near the entrance, back to the stone, eyes on the darkening ridges. The cold seeped into her gloves. Behind her, low murmurs spread. Regrets, whispered promises. A man spoke of his daughter's birthday he'd missed. Another cursed himself for the argument he'd left unresolved with his brother. The words spilled not because they wanted to share, but because silence was worse. The young soldier spoke, his voice thin. "You think we'll make it out?" No one answered, not even the commander. She turned slightly, meeting his eyes. His fear was plain. "Yes," she said softly. It was the first word she'd spoken since the firefight, and it landed like an anchor in the storm. Later, when the others drifted into uneasy sleep, she stayed awake at the entrance. Her eyes traced the horizon, the pale silver wash of moonlight over jagged stone. Her ears strained for movement, her breath shallow. The young soldier stirred beside her. "You don't sleep much, do you?" She didn't look at him. "Not when I'm needed." He hesitated. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Her throat tightened. She hadn't spoken of it. She didn't want to. But the words came low, almost a whisper. "Last mission." He waited. She swallowed, her tongue heavy. "We walked into something we shouldn't have, like this. Too many, too fast. We didn't all make it out." The air felt colder now. She kept her eyes forward. "There was someone," her voice cracked slightly. He mattered." Her chest ached, the memory flashing again. The dust, the screaming, the desperate grip slipping from hers. The young soldier's voice was careful. "You lost him." She didn't answer, but her silence was enough. At dawn, the commander forced them onward. His eyes were sunken, his face gray. He didn't look at her when he gave orders now. Maybe he was afraid of what she'd see. They moved through barren ridges, the sun beating down, throats parched, rations dwindling. The wounded slowed them, every step a struggle. By midday, one man collapsed. His leg wound had festered, blood seeping dark through bandages. He cursed, tried to push himself up, but his body gave in. The commander snapped, "Get him on his feet." Two men tried. The injured soldier screamed, collapsing again. The air thickened with tension. The commander's face twisted. He was unraveling. "We can't stop. If we stop, we die here." The men froze. No one wanted to speak. She stepped forward. "We carry him." The commander whipped around. "We can't waste strength." Her eyes burned into him. "We carry him." For the first time, her voice cut like steel. The silence after was heavier than gunfire. Then slowly one man bent, sliding his arms under the wounded soldier. Another helped. Together they lifted him. The unit moved again, slower but moving. The commander said nothing. By nightfall, they reached a ridge overlooking a stretch of broken terrain. Far below, faint lights flickered, an enemy camp. Supplies, weapons, maybe a vehicle. The commander crouched low, studying through his scope. We avoid it, too many. We go around. The men groaned. Going around meant 2 more days in this wasteland. 2 more days without food, without water. She studied the camp, her heart steadying as she pieced it together. The guard rotations, the shadows, the gaps in light. She could see the shape of it, the way in, the way out. We hit it, she said. The commander spun. Are you insane? That's suicide. She shook her head. It's survival. The men shifted, uncertain. Their eyes darted between her and the commander. The young soldier spoke up, voice hesitant. She's been right before. The words hung in the air, the first time anyone had spoken for her. The commander's jaw clenched, his authority frayed, but he didn't argue further. Finally he muttered, fine, but if this goes wrong. She cut him off. It won't. The plan formed in silence. She laid it out with calm precision, tracing paths in the dirt with her gloved hand. In, out, fast. No unnecessary risks. The men listened, wary but attentive. Even the commander stayed quiet. When night deepened, they moved, shadows among shadows. Their breaths held, their boots finding silence on stone. The camp loomed closer, the flicker of firelight painting shifting shapes. Voices in a language they didn't understand echoed faintly. Her pulse slowed. The world narrowed to steps, to breaths, to the weight of her rifle in her hands. They slipped past the outer guards, took down one quietly, a hand over his mouth, a blade quick and clean. No sound but the thud of a body. Deeper in, the camp spread before them, supplies stacked, weapons glinting, vehicles parked under crude covers. Her chest tightened. For the first time, hope flared. The raid was fast, brutal. Suppressed shots cracked in the dark, muffled grunts swallowed by the night. Men moved with desperate efficiency, fueled by hunger and survival. They secured packs, water, ammunition. One of the vehicles sputtered to life, its engine low and growling. But then shouts, the camp waking, lights flaring. Gunfire erupted. The unit scrambled, ducking behind cover, exchanging bursts of fire. The wounded were hauled into the vehicle, the young soldier at the wheel, his hands shaking but steady enough. She covered the retreat, her rifle spitting sharp, precise bursts, each shot a lifeline, each kill a delay buying them seconds. The commander shouted, fall back. She stayed a moment longer, firing until the last possible second, then dove into the vehicle as it lurched forward, tearing into the night. Bullets sparked against metal, pinged off armor. The engine roared. Men shouted, clinging to hope and steel. And then silence. The camp faded into the dark behind them. They drove until dawn, the horizon glowing faintly. Exhaustion crushed them, but the weight of survival pressed harder. Inside the vehicle, men slumped, clutching food and water like treasure. The wounded moaned softly, but they were alive. The commander sat silent, staring out the window. His authority had cracked completely now. The men no longer looked to him. Their eyes drifted instead toward her. The young soldier broke the silence. We wouldn't have made it without her. No one argued. She sat in the back, her hands resting on her rifle, her face unreadable. Her chest ached with memory, with the cost of every choice. She didn't want their recognition. She didn't need it. But for the first time, she wondered. Maybe it was time they knew her name. She parted her lips as if to speak. But no sound came. Not yet. Why did the storm hit harder at night? No one asked the question out loud, but every man felt it. Every woman too. The jungle rain did not just fall, it hammered, it swallowed sound, it blurred sight, it soaked gear until it clung heavy as guilt. And in that kind of night, mistakes were born. She sat pressed against a fallen tree, rifle hugged to her chest, eyes half closed not from sleep but from calculation. She had been counting seconds between thunder rolls and muzzle flashes. Somewhere ahead, less than a kilometer, an enemy patrol was moving in a staggered line. Too steady. too trained. They weren't lost, they were hunting. One of the sergeants whispered into comms, voice low but edged with panic. "We're boxed. Movement to the east and now west, if they close before dawn." Silence answered. No one wanted to finish that sentence. She adjusted her grip, the faint click of metal drowned in rain. Her heart didn't race, not anymore. It pulsed in measured beats, slow, deliberate. Fear had left her body a long time ago, but not her mind. It lived there as memory, reminding her why she couldn't let the squad die tonight. Not after everything. Not after him. Someone nudged her shoulder. Morales. He had that half-smile again, though it wavered now. "You're quiet as a ghost, you know that. What's cooking in that head of yours?" She didn't answer at first. The words would make too much noise. Instead, she tilted her chin toward the ridge. Morales followed her eyes, then swore under his breath. A flash of movement, faint, blurred through the rain, but undeniable. Scouts sweeping high ground. If they didn't act, the enemy would encircle. "Orders," Morales whispered, but he wasn't really asking her. He was waiting for the lieutenant. Everyone was. That was how it always went. Only the lieutenant's voice never came. He was still bleeding from a jagged wound down his leg, teeth clenched against the pain, face pale in the glow of lightning. The squad knew. He wasn't moving tonight. He wasn't leading anyone out. Her fingers tapped against her rifle. 1, 2, 3. Then she whispered, barely moving her lips, "Split them." Morales blinked. "What?" She looked at him, rain sliding off her helmet, eyes sharp and steady. "We can't outrun both lines. We break their formation, pull them off each other, make them chase shadows." A long silence, just rain and the low hum of distant thunder. Then, from the corner, one of the younger privates muttered, "And who's gonna make them chase? Who's gonna stick their neck out?" She didn't need to answer. The squad already knew. The rain shifted, heavier, and in that moment she stood. Every drop seemed to strike her armor harder than the earth itself. For a second, they all stared, the woman no one remembered at the briefing table, the one always mistaken for a last-minute replacement, now standing in the storm like it had been waiting for her. Morales reached for her arm. "You're out of your mind." She shook him off. "They don't know my name, that makes me invisible. Tonight, that's what saves you." She slid into the rain before anyone could stop her. The jungle swallowed her whole, darkness and water and breath that turned to mist. She moved low, steps careful, rifle tucked close. She could hear them now, boots squelching through mud, soft hand signals she didn't recognize but understood. Trained, professional. They thought they were the hunters. She pressed her back to a tree, eyes closed. She could almost hear his voice again, not Morales, not the lieutenant, but the one who'd taught her to move like this, to breathe like this. The one who hadn't come home. She had carried that silence ever since. Her finger brushed the trigger, not to pull but to feel its weight. She was not here to win a battle. She was here to buy them a chance. The first shot cracked like lightning. A single figure dropped in the ridge line and the jungle came alive with shouted orders, sudden chaos. She didn't stay to watch. She was already moving, cutting through the storm, firing again from another angle. 2 shots, then silence. Then a curse shouted in a foreign tongue. Confusion, perfect. She circled wide, heart steady, lungs burning. They would think there were more of her. They had to. Behind her in the black rain, the squad began to move. And for the first time that night, hope whispered between thunder. What happens when the decoy doesn't come back? The question sat heavy in their chests, though no one dared to speak it. Every soldier knew the math. A distraction only worked if it drew fire long enough. And anyone who stayed out there, alone in the storm, carried the odds like a death sentence. The squad pushed through the mud, boots sinking deep, rifles raised in trembling hands. The jungle pressed close, wet leaves slapping faces, branches clawing at shoulders. Their breaths came ragged, part fear, part guilt. Morales glanced back more than forward. Each time his eyes asked the same thing. Was she still alive? A burst of gunfire answered. Sharp, clean, controlled. Not wild panic, not enemy suppression, her shots. He exhaled, a knot loosening inside him. "She's still running the game," he muttered. Nobody replied. Ahead the lieutenant limped, teeth gritted against the pain in his leg. His weight leaned heavy on another private's shoulder. He hated it, Morales could tell. The man was proud, maybe too proud, but tonight pride bent beneath survival. And somewhere beneath the thunder, Morales thought he heard him whisper not a prayer but a name. The wrong one, not hers. She was still a ghost in their minds, a silhouette in rain. Out there she darted through the undergrowth like smoke, her breath measured in shallow draws. Each step burned, each slide across mud tested her balance. But the rain helped her. It swallowed her noise, it veiled her shape. She became part of the storm. Still, she knew it couldn't last. Their comms were better, their numbers larger. Every shot she fired was a countdown. She ducked behind a rotted stump, raindrops smacking against her helmet like small stones. A voice crackled through the static of her earpiece, Morales low, urgent. "We're moving. 30 degrees south. Don't wait up." She closed her eyes, let the words sting for a moment. "Don't wait up," as if she had planned to. Lightning split the sky, forking across the canopy. In that burst of white she saw them, shapes moving fast, rifles scanning, closing the net again. Her rifle came up slow, steady. One squeeze, then another. The storm ate the sound, but not the effect. Bodies dropped, confusion erupted. Shouts ricocheted through the trees. But she didn't feel triumph. Only the cold weight of inevitability. For every one she dropped, more spread out, circling. They were learning her rhythm. Her chest tightened. Not fear, a memory. A face in desert dust, a promise made in whispers she never repeated. She had failed to keep him alive once. She would not fail these men now. She broke cover, running low, boots tearing through mud, breath sharp against her ribs. A flare arced into the sky, red, glowing, painting the rain like fire. The enemy was signaling, locking positions. She knew what came next, mortars, sweeps. Her earpiece crackled again, Morales this time with anger. "What the hell are you doing? Break off, you hear me? Break off." She didn't answer. She couldn't. If she did, she might hesitate. And hesitation meant 20 men never seeing dawn. Instead, she pulled a flashbang from her vest, thumbed the pin, waited, listened, boots, voices too close. She rolled it into the darkness and turned away, eyes shut. The blast cracked louder than thunder, a white bloom tearing through the black. Shouts turned to screams. She was already gone, slipping deeper into the chaos she'd lit. And behind her the squad gained distance, precious distance. Morales swore under his breath, rage mixing with awe. He wanted to scream her name, but the truth burned in his chest. He didn't know it. He only knew her as the quiet one, the ghost. The storm carried them further south, deeper into shadows that might yet lead them home. And behind, in the jungle fire of flares and rain, she fought like a woman already erased, determined to leave something that mattered in the silence. Because if they survived, it would not be by accident. It would be because of her. "Zix," ChatGPT said. "How long can one person run on nothing but will?" The squad didn't know. They didn't see the blood mixing with rain on her sleeve, the tremor in her knees each time she pushed forward through the mud. They only heard her ghost trail, the cracks of her rifle, the bursts of chaos, the screams of men chasing a phantom they couldn't catch. She had become more shadow than soldier now. Rain slicked her hair beneath the helmet, sweat stung her eyes. Each breath rasped shallow but steady, steady enough. She couldn't falter. Not while they needed her to stay unseen, unheard, unknown. A memory rose unbidden as she crouched beneath the broad leaves of a banyan tree. A boy's laugh, not Morales, not one of them. A face she hadn't said aloud in years. The last time she'd heard that laugh, it was cut short by fire, swallowed by dust. Her brother, younger by 3 years, braver by none. She had promised herself she'd never let another squad be buried under silence the way he was. Tonight, that vow lived sharper than her rifle. The jungle shifted, voices, Low, coordinated, they were close. She pressed her cheek to the wet earth, listening, boots crunching, rifles slung low, a search line sweeping slow, patient. She could feel the storm inside her chest now, a war of choices. To shoot was to expose. To wait was to risk being found. Every second stretched thin, stretched raw. A figure loomed past her cover, close enough to hear breath. She froze. Raindrops traced down her temple, cold as steel. The soldier paused, scanning. She could hear the faint click of his safety, if he turned half an inch more. She moved first, knife drawn, hand clamping his mouth. The struggle was brutal, brief, silent. When his body sagged, she lowered him into the mud like a child back into sleep. Her lungs burned, her hands shook. She hated the closeness of it, hated seeing eyes dim at arm's length, but there was no other way. In the distance, Morale's voice hissed again through comms, broken by static. 2 clicks more. We're clear if we make the ridge. Her lips parted to answer. No sound came. She pressed the comm button anyway, a gesture of presence, of I'm still here. That would have to be enough. The patrol regrouped, shouts echoing as they discovered the missing man. The sweep tightened, rain drumming harder against the canopy as if the sky wanted to smother her tracks. She moved again, weaving through root and shadow, every step a prayer not spoken but lived. Behind her, the squad stumbled forward, driven by desperation. They were exhausted, every face lined with grime and fear. The lieutenant leaned heavier now, his jaw clenched white. One of the privates muttered to himself over and over, some nursery rhyme turned mantra. Another whispered that if he got out, he'd never waste another day fighting with his father. Small, fragile hopes carried like medals against despair. Morales listened, eyes darting between the path and the comm. Every shot, every echo from behind made him flinch. He hated himself for letting her go alone, hated how the weight of survival felt like betrayal. The ridge rose ahead, jagged and slick, salvation within reach. But salvation was never free. She saw them first, the second wave. Enemy squads moving to cut off the exit, smarter this time, faster. Her breath caught. If they closed that ridge, the squad would have nowhere left to run. Her rifle came up. The rain slid down the barrel like tears. She fired once, twice, breaking the silence. The enemy faltered, regrouped. She shifted position, kept firing, her presence burning like a beacon. They would see her now. They would chase her now. That was the point. In her earpiece, Morale's voice cracked, raw, pleading. Don't do this. She smiled without joy, eyes fixed on the shapes closing in. Her whisper barely rose above the rain. I already did. And the storm swallowed her again. Why does the world go quiet right before the end? The squad felt it as they scrambled up the ridge, mud slick beneath their boots, lungs heaving fire. The storm still howled around them, but somewhere in the chaos behind, her gun had fallen silent. Morales froze halfway up the slope, heart hammering. He turned, scanning the jungle below, desperate for another crack of her rifle, another sign that the ghost was still out there pulling the noose wider. Nothing. Just the hiss of rain, the echo of distant shouts. Keep moving, the lieutenant barked, voice breaking with strain, but his eyes betrayed the same fear. If she was gone, then all of this, every desperate push forward, had been bought with her blood. Morales didn't move. His boots sank deeper into the mud as he stared into the trees. His gut twisted, screaming at him to go back to find her. But another voice pressed harder, hers, the way she'd looked at him before disappearing into the storm. They don't know my name. That makes me invisible. Tonight, that's what saves you. He forced his legs to climb. Every step upward felt like betrayal. Below, she crouched in the ruins of her cover, blood seeping warm through her sleeve. The last firefight had torn more than her uniform, shrapnel-kissed bone, each movement a jolt of lightening up her arm. Her rifle lay empty beside her. She reloaded slow, deliberate, teeth gritted against the pain. The enemy was closing in now, their voices confident, certain they had finally cornered the shadow. She counted them not by sight but by sound. 5, maybe 6, too many to outlast, but she wasn't here to outlast. She was here to stall. She pressed her back against the tree, rain cooling the fire in her arm. Her thoughts drifted not to medals, not to glory, to a kitchen table back home, a mug of coffee she never finished, the brother she buried, the silence she carried ever since. She wondered if anyone would even remember her face. Then, as if the storm itself had mercy, a faint crack of comms came through Morales, his voice breaking. "We made the ridge. We see daylight." Her eyes closed. Relief flooded through her veins, dull and heavy, more powerful than morphine. They were almost out, almost safe. She whispered, barely audible, as if speaking only to the rain, "Good, that's enough." The enemy broke through the undergrowth, shadows with rifles raised. She fired once, twice, drawing them toward her. Every shot a promise kept. Every second she held them here was another breath for her squad above. Morales reached the top of the ridge, chest burning, and turned for one last look. Through the sheets of rain, through the chaos below, he thought he saw her standing, framed against the storm, small but unyielding. A figure no one had remembered until now. The lieutenant's hand gripped his shoulder. "Don't look back," he said, voice raw. "She gave us this, don't waste it." Morales nodded, though tears blurred his vision. He turned toward the pale light breaking beyond the ridge, forcing his legs forward. Behind them the storm raged. Her rifle sang one last time, then silence. And sometimes silence is louder than any gunfire. What do you tell the families when the name isn't even on your tongue? Morales asked himself that question every day after. The squad made it home, battered, limping, hollow-eyed but alive. 20 men and 1 officer, carried back by a storm no one would ever see. At first they didn't speak of her, not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know how. In the reports, her role blurred, covering fire, rear guard action, sustained enemy delay. The words sounded clean, bloodless, the kind of words that erase the weight of what she did. Morales couldn't stand it. Each time someone said, "lucky break," he felt the guilt twist sharper. Luck had nothing to do with it. A woman with no name in their memories had chosen to stay behind, chosen to give them dawn. He remembered her silence at the briefing table, how she never fought to speak over the louder voices, how her eyes always searched the maps longer, deeper, as if seeing paths no one else noticed. He remembered her hand brushing his arm when he cracked under nerves, steadying him without words. He remembered that look in the rain, calm, resolute, already decided. He wished to God he remembered her name. The lieutenant visited him weeks later, crutches under his arms, eyes carrying weight. "Command called it a success," he said flatly, "but we know the truth." Morales nodded. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence between them was heavier than medals, heavier than flags. One of the younger privates broke down one night, whiskey spilling with his tears. "I didn't even ask her where she was from," he confessed. "Not once. We sat through 3 meals and I never asked, and she died for me." Morales put a hand on his shoulder. He had no answer, none that mattered. The years passed, missions blurred, new faces replaced old ones, but the storm never left Morales. Each rainfall carried her shadow. Each silence in the field echoed her rifle's last song. One day, standing at a memorial wall etched with names, he pressed his hand against the cold stone. Hundreds of letters carved permanent, but hers wasn't there. She had slipped through records, through memory, like she slipped through rain. Invisible. And that was when he understood. She hadn't needed them to remember her name. She had only needed them to live. He closed his eyes, breath trembling, and whispered into the wind, "We remember you anyway." The rain began to fall, soft against his face, as if the storm itself answered. And in that moment, a truth settled, quiet but eternal. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.